Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. So I received a lot of feedback in response to my shared ownership video where I spoke about selling my flat. So I thought the easiest way to answer some of the questions that you guys have is to basically just jump on here and do a video. So I really hope that you guys find this helpful and I hope this answers some of the questions that you may have. So one of the main questions that I have been asked is, why did I decide to do shared ownership in the first place and why did I decide to sell my property? The reason why I decided to do shared ownership, I was renting a 2-bedroom flat in London and I realized that actually the same amount that I was paying for my rent, I could probably be paying in rent and mortgage on a shared ownership property. So that was the first thing, is that I realized that actually the amount I was paying could also be going towards paying off of a mortgage. The other reason why, to be honest, it was pressure. I mean, I've spoken about this before. There is this pressure in society to buy a property. If you speak to some of your friends, the majority of people will talk to you about the fact that they want to buy a property. They want to own their property. So I guess for me, it kind of felt like I was renting and I was spending dead money, and should I be doing that? Or should I instead be putting that money towards paying off a mortgage? And I couldn't afford to do it outright, which is why I decided to go down the shared ownership route. Now, the flat that I was living in, I thought about buying a share in that property, but unfortunately, from the time that I moved in to the time that I decided to buy, the property had increased by around 150,000. So I thought, okay, maybe I could get more for my money if I moved a bit further out, and I managed to find somewhere that was still a really nice 2-bed, cheaper, and I could get a bigger percentage. So moving on as to why I decided to sell. So after about 1.5 years, I was really ready to move back closer into the city. But also my mum just sold her 4-bedroom property and had decided to downsize, and as a result of downsizing she had quite a lot of equity, so she was basically able to give me some money for a deposit that I could use to buy a property outright. So that was the reason why I decided to sell. A, because I wanted to move a bit closer into London, and B, because I now had a deposit to buy outright in London. So I know that I had a few questions of people saying, why did you sell so early? That was basically the reason why. Okay, so another question that I get asked quite a lot is, what am I doing now? Have I decided to buy? Am I renting? So I have now decided to rent. The main reason for that is I wasn't yet sure what property I wanted to buy once I'd sold mine. And to be honest, I think my shared ownership, selling my shared ownership flat, it was traumatic. Like, it was traumatic. And I don't think, yes, I think that was partly because I was dealing with multiple parties, but also if you speak to anybody who has sold or bought a property, they will tell you that it can be very, very stressful. So I was quite traumatized, to be honest, and I was ready to just have some flexibility, have less responsibility, and rent a place. And I think one of the pros that a lot of people don't talk about when it comes to renting is that when you rent in an area, you can get to decide if you like the area. Another topic of conversation that has come up since I've done that video is there's been quite a few people who have basically said, is shared ownership that negative? Is it that bad of a scheme? Should they be staying away from it? Because there are some people who have had some positive experiences. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit. So as you guys know, obviously my experience wasn't the best experience, and from receiving a lot of comments from you guys, I can see that you've also had pretty poor experiences as well. But I also wanted to highlight one of the positive experiences that I know about. So once I moved out of my shared ownership flat, my next door neighbor decided that she also wanted to sell her flat and go onto the Help to Buy scheme. So she put her flat on the market in December 2020, and by March 2021 it had gone through. She was out and she's now in her Help to Buy property. She had a 25% share, and literally within the first 2 days of it being listed, she had 7 viewings. Now our property was basically the same, except mine was bigger, it had an extra bathroom, and it was sun facing as well. So if anything, it was a little bit nicer. Yet she had 7 viewings in 2 days. Meanwhile, in a year, I think I just about had 7 viewings. So with her 25% share, she found it a lot easier to sell compared to my 65% share, which was a lot harder to sell. Now, there were a few people who have said to me, why did you buy such a big share? And the reason, once you apply for a shared ownership property, they will tell you how much you can afford. So they'll look at your income, they'll look at your savings, they'll look at your deposit, and they'll determine how much you can afford to buy. And for me, I could afford to buy 65%. So I think that's what some people don't realize, is that they think that you can actually choose which percentage that you get, whereas unfortunately it's the housing association that tell you what you can buy. So that's the first thing. So I had a 65% share, she had a 25% share. She was able to sell her property a lot quicker than I was. Another question that I get asked is, what were my costs and did I lose money? If you go and check out Self-Invested video, I basically give a breakdown of all the costs that I had, and as it turned out, I came out £500 down. Now, considering that my flat had dropped in value from 320,000 to 292,000 and I bought it for 305,000, coming out with a £500 deficit wasn't the end of the world. So I do get asked that question a lot, is did you lose any money? Yes, I came out £500 down. But I also want to add to that is that this is after paying solicitors fees, estate agent fees, and also like the valuation costs to the housing association for their legal fees. And when I sold my property, it was just before the end of my 2-year fixed term with my mortgage lender. As a result, I also had to pay an early redemption fee as well. So with all of that together, I came out £500 down. Now, I don't think that's too bad. Another question that I've received is, why didn't I staircase to 100% and just buy the property outright? So I did think about doing that. I think this was about a year in after buying it. And when I spoke to my mortgage lender, they said I would need a £34,000 deposit, which I didn't have. So also at this time, my salary hadn't increased that much either. So therefore, what I could afford a year ago when I bought it didn't really change much for when I was thinking about staircasing. So again, I would have needed to have raised more capital for a deposit, and I just didn't have access at that time. So I guess the main thing that I just wanted you guys to take from this is that my experience doesn't necessarily have to be your experience. Like I said, my next door neighbor, who literally had the flat right next to mine, in my bedroom backed onto her living room, right next to mine, she was able to sell her property within 4 months. That was a 25% share, and she was able to sell it. She had 7 people who were interested and she had 6 offers. So it's different experiences. It doesn't mean that it has to be a negative experience for you. I think the main thing is, if you are thinking of doing shared ownership, really understand the pros and cons. Try to get a balance of the good stories and the negative stories and work out whether this is for you. But what I really want to leave you guys with is, if you are thinking of buying because of what society is telling you, or because you feel like there's this urge that I must buy, I must be on the property ladder, I shouldn't be wasting money and renting, don't do it for others. Do it based off of your financial position and what works for you. Society is always going to have an opinion on what you should and shouldn't be doing. Don't worry about stigmas. Don't worry about people's negative opinions. If renting works for you, then continue to rent. If you want to get on the property ladder and the shared ownership way is the only way of doing it, and you're happy after weighing up the pros and cons, then go for it. At the end of the day, this is your life, this is your money, and this is your journey. And it is not up to anybody else to dictate to you what you should be doing. Okay guys, I really hope you found this video helpful. I hope this has provided some more context and answered some of the questions that you may have had. Of course, if you have any more questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. You can find me on Instagram and send me a message. And as always, if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up. If you like my content, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys in my next video.